completely forgot I was muted. Just going awesome today. Good morning. I'm sorry for the slightly slower than usual start this morning. Technical challenges definitely seem to be the name of the game today. So now there is a brand new episode of GraysMatter's podcast. And unfortunately, the audio file for one of the guests is a little bit on the struggle bus. But another thing that GraysMatter podcast does is Justin often speaks at panels, right? Like at conventions and things like that, and records the panels. And so instead of doing kind of like a regular podcast episode, we're instead going to work our way through Artificial People, which is the name of a panel that Justin did. So kind of behind the scenes, I was troubleshooting in real time to figure out like, oh crap, I had a different plan the plan that I had for this morning is actually not the plan that's gonna happen. So there's nothing like scrambling on the fly. So let's just dive right in here. And of course, you'll notice different from the last couple of weeks. We're back to a single track because that's how audio files get recorded at conventions. So this should be fun. Well, let's just dive right in here. Panels often get off to a slow start, so I was looking over to make sure that my shared computer audio button was actually checked so you guys can hear things from the get-go today. And it seems like it's all systems go on that front, so that's good news.
Yes. Okay. At least that's what my notes say, so.
Let's zoom in a little bit more here. I'm guessing that we're going to be starting like right in at like the 50-second mark.
Plus my wife, she's like, why am I talking to Alexa? I'm like, just do this, it's for a panel.
But no, my guess was completely wrong.
It is for science.
It's for science.
We do what we must because we can.
Did Bill Clinton say that?
I got it from GLaDOS.
Okay.
GLaDOS? Oh, I know what GLaDOS is, that the cake is real.
Yes, the cake.
My next guess is here.
And I think of the full line now.
Sorry, I broke your
Okay,
brain.
still no.
It's because of the other company trying to do the same experiments. Black Mesa.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, that was it.
It wasn't Bill Clinton.
So I don't know about you all,
Fat
but
pants.
like, sleep has definitely
This
been
cake is
a
great. It's so
challenge this
delicious
week.
and moist. Look at me
I'm-
still talking while there's science to do.
taking a minute here to
Oh crap.
look at my Fitbit sleep profile.
The experiments
From
get
last night.
science gets done and experiments are run on the people who are still alive.
Yeah, not
Welcome.
great. Oh my goodness.
There's a lot of dead people.
There is a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did not get incinerated when I played that game.
So,
Yeah, that's me too. I'm Portal adjacent. I'm not sure of the game.
I really liked Portal because it's just puzzles, a lot of puzzles. The getting through it the first time was really easy for me. Doing the advanced versions of the same levels, I have still not been able to finish them.
Wow.
Yeah. I kind of stopped for a while because I was getting frustrated.
so while we're waiting,
pick
one thing I want to draw a little bit of attention to is
I should
the
also play
shirt I'm
Portal
wearing
2,
today. So I'm going to stand up.
Since, you know, I
This
own
was
it.
designed
Probably
You
play
own
it.
it?
Yeah, my best friend
Right.
got it for me for
By the
as a gift so that we could play two-player
Heather
mode
Lou.
together. But then I was going to
6 feet
college
apart,
and
but
working.
close at heart.
And then when I had time, he was going to college and working. Then when he had
Heather
time, I was
just
working two jobs.
super
Then when I
incredible
had time,
artist.
he had another kid.
I'm gonna
So we just kind of kept going back and forth
put
and
her
not
website
having
here
time
in
at the
the
same
chat.
time. And we're still having the same issue with not
This
having
is
time at the
awesome.
same time because he's back in college now. And I should just, play it without him. Since it's sitting there on my
There it
computer
is.
waiting to be played. Yeah.
That is Heather's website. And yeah, I love her
For
art.
what?
It's just joyful. It's so good.
I believe you're moderating.
Am I moderating?
That's what my
Okay.
notes say.
Oh,
We're getting closer to the
sorry.
beginning. They're figuring out
Sitting
who's
here,
moderating
I-
the panel. Making progress.
Oh,
Yes.
that helps. It's getting towards the end of the con. And
Oh, excellent.
I guess they did that because I'm I wrote the panel description. But
I get that.
we'll dig out the panel description and,
I have it right here if you'd like.
oh, well, thank you very much. Okay. Artificial people in science fiction. This is about biological people enhanced or other.
All right. So they're okay.
Artificial people in science fiction. This is about biological people enhanced or otherwise who are not conceived and gestated in the normal way. From Frankenstein through Rossman's Universal Robots to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and Friday. This has been the topic of many classic and not so classic science fiction stories. Why are authors drawn to this idea, and is there any real-world reason for artificial people? And I'll ask the fellow panelists to introduce themselves
Okay.
from the.
I was kind of listening to see, like, is there going to be like, welcome to artificial people, but not today. So one thing that I'm going to do, actually, now that we know, kind of where the panel begins, is I'm going to see if I can lift out just like a little snippet of sound that is just the people talking in the background. So what I've highlighted here, my guess is that is it. So we're just going to take a quick listen to see if I'm right. And yes, okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to capture the noise print. So, and the reason that we're doing that, so now we've captured the noise print. Now I'm going to actually highlight this entire audio file. And we're going to go to noise reduction. And I'm actually, so at least this is how I think about it. As somebody who is self-taught, is not technically trained, is that you're trying to lift the conversation like up as high as you can away from like these low frequency like background noise. So I'm just gonna and you can test it out before you apply it. So I'm just gonna go to kind of like the beginning of the panel and see how that sounds.
This is about biological people enhanced or otherwise who are not conceived and gestated in the normal way. From Frankenstein through Rossman's Universal Robots to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and Friday. This has been the topic of many classic and not so classic science fiction stories. Why are authors drawn to this idea, and is there any real-world reason for artificial people? And I'll ask the fellow panelists to introduce themselves from the far left, my left, your far right, to here.
Hi, Kathy Sullivan. I write short stories.
Okay. Okay, well, I think that's probably going to be about as good as it gets. So I'll just apply that noise reduction. And it'll take a few seconds. And yeah, this is a real challenge with live recordings. Right? Because, and I will say, especially live recordings where there are a lot of people, right? Because even if humans are trying to be quiet, it turns out that we're just pretty much terrible at it. So, I mean, you're right. Like, what do you do? I'm also going to take a minute here to just match the loudness, and hopefully that's going to pan out okay. Again, just like give them the background noise, because I noticed the first person that was introducing themselves was super quiet. And obviously, I'd like to be able to hear what they have to say. So hopefully we can do that, you know? So going back to my comments about sleep a few seconds ago, I got a Fitbit for Mother's Day after having lost mine in a move a little over a year ago. And my Fitbit came with like a premium subscription for a year. And so it gives you like your sleep score average for the week. I'm usually in the 70s, every week, but like last week was actually really good. My average sleep score for the week was 77, and this week it's down to 72. And oh gosh, I'm feeling it. Like, that's for sure. All right. So we've done kind of all the technical treatments that I would normally do in the beginning. Let's take a listen again.
Artificial people in science fiction. This is about biological people, enhanced or otherwise, who are not conceived and gestated in the normal way. From Frankenstein through Rossman's universal robots, to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and Friday?
Let's see.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and Dream of
Let's see.
Electric
I just want to, like, how is that going to sound?
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
You know what I'm going to do? And I did this a few weeks ago. I think that would sound fine with a little fade. So I'm going to move this into a multi-track session so that I can do a fade. I think I'm going to go. Because, yeah, there's definitely some benefits to yeah, I guess to doing multi-track, even if you're not, obviously, this isn't multi-track. So now that was happening in about 18 seconds. So we're just going to zoom right in here.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Electric Sheep? Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Okay. So now I'm going to do I think on both sides, just a little fading.
Stream of electric sheep. Stream of electric sheep. Stream of electric sheep.
Maybe just like a little space. I don't know.
Stream of electric sheep.
Gosh.
Electron. Stream of electric sheep.
Dan, you know what, you guys? I think we're just gonna have to leave it. Like, there's not really anything for it.
To do Android stream of electric sheep. And Friday, this has been
We can definitely get rid of.
Friday. This has been the topic of many classic and not so classic science fiction stories. Why are authors drawn to this idea, and is there any real world reason for artificial people? And last
Right. Let's see here.
real world reason for artificial people. And I'll ask the fellow panelists to and
So we're just gonna
uh,
cut out a bit here. There we go.
reason for artificial people. And I'll ask the fellow panelists to introduce themselves from the far left, my left, your far right, to here.
Hi, I'm Kathy Sullivan. I write short stories. It's a great collection, as well as novels. And I got into the science fiction thanks to my dad's collection. So there's a lot of artificial beings from long ago that I recall. So that's why I wanted to be here. And yeah.
Lyda Morehouse. I write science fiction. I also write some paranormal romance under a different name, Tate Halloway. So that's me. Why am I on this panel? I don't know. We'll find out. I think I did in fact actually conceive a child in an unusual way, so I can have some real life experience to this. So.
My name is Naomi Kritzer. I write science fiction and fantasy. I live in
Award-winning.
Oh, sorry.
Hugo
Award-winning!
I won a Hugo for a story about an AI, so that's why I'm on this panel. But yeah, the personhood of artificial
awesome.
people is kind of central to several of the stories I've written, so that's why I wanted to be on it.
My name is Justin Gray.
Got a little lip smack there.
That's why I wanted to be on it.
My name is Justin Grays. I have not finished any science fiction stories yet. I have a number that I'm working on at the moment. I am more on this panel, I think, because I have a degree in gender studies, heavily in anthropology, and I have a great interest in artificial peoples, especially because of
I don't know if you all knew this, but Justin and I actually have a bachelor's degree in gender studies at the same time.
in artificial peoples, especially because of
Which is how
the
I-
history of how many humans were
No,
not seen
Justin.
as people, and the ways things have changed since then, and the way things haven't changed since then. You can find out more by scanning this QR code here, or go to my website, justingrays.org. There are also links to everyone else's websites from here, so you can learn more about all of us.
Okay,
Us.
Okay.
All of us.
Okay, I'm Gerald Nordley. I write science fiction as G. David Nordley. I've got some bookmarks up here. My books are being sold by Dave Christensen, bookseller, in the inner, back to the back wall to your left table in the dealer's room, for as long as the dealer's room is still open. I've never written about
It sounds like somebody has like a butterscotch wrapper in the background or something like that. Do you guys hear what I'm talking
dealer's
about?
room is still open. I've never written about a biological artificial person. I would put the topic in because I was curious about it, and they put me on the panel. So I will be really, moderating to moderate. Because one of the people in my moderate.
Okay. Now that I think can just ditch it. See how that sounds.
Moderating to moderate. Because one of the people in my writers group wrote a story about the creation of the story of Frankenstein, that writers group that met on the lake at Lake Geneva, and where the vampire and Frankenstein were actually born. I ended up learning a lot about that. Actually born. I ended up learning a lot about that, and
Maybe a fade there could be good. Let's see how it sounds.
actually born. I ended up that and Mary Shelley, and I also did an article about Mary Shelley's mother, for whatever that was worth.
Oh man, he just seems so nervous. Totally bad. Oh,
I
mean, and obviously, like, there's nothing wrong with being nervous, but yeah, it still could be a challenge. That's for sure.
about Mary Shelley's mother, for whatever that was worth. And I'm also a member of the Heinlein Society, and Heinlein would, with Friday and some of his other Heinlein would, with Friday and some of his other things touched on that, and so if I can contribute, I will. But why don't you go ahead and start off, Catherine?
Okay. Well, of course, other than Frankenstein. Okay.
Cut off Catherine. That's not the goal.
Well,
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and start off, Catherine?
of course, other than Frankenstein and a few other names, I still remember writing into my dad's collection, Neil R. Jones, Professor Jameson, where this was a human who had been frozen for, this was, it first appeared in 1931, it was reprinted in the 60s, which is why I came across it. He's an Earth human who had been frozen in orbit around Earth for 40 million years. By that time, this exploring ship of artificial life forms, which we thought were robots, the first story. It found him and put him in an artificial body. Somehow his brain was still working. I was a kid, I'd accept. Somehow his brain was still working. I was a kid, I'd accept the story. But that was the first idea that when we first came across those artificial beings, we thought they were all robots. And it was 6 books later we found out, oh, they came from this planet, and by the way, their people are still alive there. But they put themselves in robotic bodies so they could explore the universe. And one of the reasons that kind of struck me is like, yeah, it's a little bit safer to travel around in a robotic body that can be easily repaired rather than a fleshy body that's going to be damaged. Okay, I was weird, whatever.
Oh, man. All right, I'm pausing. I've got it. Like, that crinkly noise is absolutely driving me bananas. I'm going to just try. Let's see.
Stories. Why are authors drawn to this idea?
Which we thought were robots, the first story. They found him and put him in an artificial body. Somehow his brain was still working. I was a kid, I'd accept the story. But that was the first idea that when we first came across those artificial beings, we thought they were all robots. And it was 6 books later we found out, oh, they came from this planet, and by the way, their people are still alive there. But they put themselves in robotic bodies so they could explore the universe. And one of the reasons that...
Okay, here we go. Let's see. All right, so we're gonna capture this noise print again. And I'm just putting down a marker so that I know where to listen after we apply the noise reduction.
On that, and so if I can contribute, I will. But why don't you go ahead and start off, Catherine?
Well, of course, other than Frankenstein and a few other beings, I still remember, writing to my dad's collection, Neil R. Jones, Professor Jameson, where this was a human who had been frozen for, this was, it first appeared in 1931, it was reprinted in the 60s, which is why I came across it. He's an Earth human who had been frozen in orbit around Earth for 40 million years. By that time...
All right, there we go. Now we're in business. If there's anything that I've learned in being a podcast editor, it's how to be a good guest in an environment where audio is being recorded. Because like a previous version of myself might have not actually seen any issue at all, and you'd like having a bag of chips or something like that, but like, holy crap, it gets to be really distracting. All right, so
But why don't you go ahead and start off, Catherine?
Well, of course, other than Frankenstein and the other beings, I still remember writing to my dad's collection.
I'm thinking that the single track is going to be the way to go.
Where this was a human who had been frozen for This was, it first appeared in 1931, it was reprinted in the 60s, which is why I came across it. He's an Earth human who had been frozen in orbit around Earth for 40 million years. By that time, this exploring ship of artificial life forms, which we thought were robots, the first story. They found him and put him in an artificial body. Somehow his brain was still working. I was a kid, I'd accept the story. But that was the first idea that, when we first came across those artificial beings, we thought they were all robots. And it was 6 books later we found out, oh, they came from this planet, and by the way, their people are still alive there. But they put themselves in robotic bodies so they could explore the universe. And one of the reasons that kind of struck me is like, yeah, it's a little bit safer to travel.
Okay, no, never mind. Let's try this again. Okay.
Themselves in robotic bodies so they could explore the universe. And one of the reasons that kind of struck me is like, yeah, it's a little bit safer to travel around the robotic body that be deeply repaired rather than a fleshy body that's going to be damaged. Okay, we're you know, whatever. But that's one of the reasons why some of the other stories that I kept coming across in the early science fiction novels.
Well,
But that's one of the reasons why some of the other stories that I kept coming across in the early science fiction I was reading was that humans were putting themselves in artificial.
well, I really am a little bit stumped, if I'm being honest.
But that's one of the reasons why.
I think that's going to be it. And I don't love it. But sometimes you just got to do the best you can with what you've got. Like, there's just nothing for it. And now anybody who's watching this knows. Try to be a good guest in a live audio recording environment.
Around the robotic body that be deeply repaired rather than a fleshy body that's going to be damaged. Okay,
Excuse me.
But that's one of the reasons why some of the other stories that I kept coming across in the early science fiction I was reading was that humans were putting themselves in artificial bodies so they could explore, so they could go down to planets.
Let's see, is this something we can just get rid of without sacrificing anything?
So they could go down to planets.
Yes. All right.
Final, because I kind of like the back.
And you know what, you guys, I apologize. Much like last Saturday, I should have grabbed a sweater. So I'm going to do that real quickly here. There we go. That's much better. Okay.
Fleshy body, but, you know, that was one of the reasons they came across with robotic bodies most of the time. And I mean, even later on, when we came into Doctor Who, we had the Cybermen, basically because they had to replace their bodies. I don't want to keep going on the same thing. I don't want to keep going. We had the Cybermen, basically because they had to replace their bodies. I don't want to keep going on the same thing.
Nobody else
I'm sure you guys
Yeah.
know something else too.
So what was the initial, what was the question? Just
Name some things, maybe?
name some things. Okay, so I was thinking about this. There's specifically about artificial.
Let's see.
There's.
Let's see.
So I was thinking about this specifically about artificial people, like people who are created and who are not treated as human. Like sort of the most iconic example that came to mind is the book whose title I totally can't remember right now, but it's about the clones in England who are being harvested for body parts. Written by the guy who wrote Remains of the Day. How are people not giving me the title? It's this literary fiction novel that has some issues because it's more litfic than SF, and
I'm curious if somebody
the
will
problem
think
with
of the name.
literary
of the
writers
book.
write SF is that they're always like a little bit behind the curve in terms of sort of dealing. Like there's a lot of SF out there that like
It's already touched on
there's
stuff.
touched on this stuff in there. Yeah.
They made a movie out of it.
I found it.
Let's see.
There's touched on this stuff in there. Yeah.
They made a movie out of it.
I found it deeply frustrating because the clones never fight back. Never let me go, thank you. Deeply frustrating because clones never fight back. Never let me go, thank you. Because clones never fight back. Never let me go, thank you. Yeah, the book.
See,
Never
people
Let
at
Me Go.
conventions
'Cause
always
they're,
never let you
they're-
down.
they're
That's for
clones
sure.
Or something, and they're being, they're raised to adulthood in these like creepy boarding schools, and then they're worked as like personal care assistants as they're like taken apart piece by piece, and then final donation means you're killed. It's like horrifying, and it's like this very like. It's horror, but it's like very pastoral horror. Like the horror is really, really understated. And
Okay. There we go.
it's like very pastoral horror. Like the horror is really, really understated. And I was also thinking about like 3 of my stories touch on this are in my collection: Artifice, The Golem, and Cat Pictures, Please. But up for awards the same year as my story was a story called Today I Am Paul, which is up for the Nebula. It's about an android that like essentially works as a personal care assistant for an old lady with dementia and simply pretends to be a different person each day, whoever she's asking for that day.
Oh man, that just sounds heartbreaking.
For that day. And the story Ecstasy Array by my friend Harry LeBlanc.
Oh, Harry.
This is a really obscure story, but it was in Tales of the Unanticipated well over a decade ago. And if you ever get like there's like a deal where you get a big stack of back issues. It's worth looking up. It's about a guy who is like kept around to be harvested for body parts, but he can grow new body parts so he doesn't die. And well, he grows himself
An array of penises.
an array of penises, because why not? Anyway, it's there's a lot of stories out there that kind of
Does Miles
What I-
from Kroskin count as a human that was created artificially?
Well, he is seen
I'm
as
asking.
Okay, so what's interesting about those books is that Miles is definitely seen as a person. He is.
Okay.
He is grown in a way that is unconventional for the world where he's born, Barrayar, but is very routine other places, which is to say he's transferred into a uterine replicator, an artificial uterus, to be gestated. However, he has a brother to be gestated. However, he has a brother,
I think that sounds all
a
right.
That's true,
clone,
because of clone brother.
Mark, that somebody else makes unauthorized. And Mark is very much not treated as a person by the people who raised him. He is treated as a weapon and as a slave and as a tool. And when he finally encounters Miles, the way Miles wins him over and survives the encounter is that he instantly, immediately and unhesitatingly treats Mark as his brother. And Mark has been called Miles his whole life because the plot involves him replacing Miles.
So then every time Miles gets injured.
Sorry, that putting down noise was
Yeah, he's been
me.
tortured his whole life. by
My
his
phone was very
captors, his
aggressively
keepers.
reminding me that
So Miles looks
I
him
can
in
get
the
double
eye and
XP in
says, "Your name is
Duolingo this
decided
morning
for
because
you
I did
on
a lesson
Dariar,
last night.
and your name is Mark. Your name is Mark because you would be named after your other grandfather, or your mother's brother. So there's some relative whose name he is automatically assigned as Miles' younger brother, and he is like, your name is Mark. You're not Miles. You're Mark. And as soon as I get you home, our mother is going to see you as her second son, the one that she couldn't afford to have. Like, come home with me and have a family. And initially you don't think it's work, but in the end it does. And Miles joins Mark, comes and joins the family. And what's revelatory for him is that these people who he was raised to hate and he was raised as a tool to destroy are the ones who do treat him as a person. Anyway, yeah, no, that's a great example. Actually.
I was just wondering, so, go ahead, Ben.
My first experience with artificial people. My first experience with artificial people outside of robots and androids would be the cartoon Exo Squad, premiered back in 1993. It lasted almost 2 years. Terrans. Almost 2 years. Terrans created Neo Sapiens to help them terraform Mars and Venus. And they were treated horribly and kept as a slave class until they rebelled. And as I got older, I started rethinking about that cartoon series, going, all right, I can see that every time humans decides to keep slaves, one, the slaves rebel, and two, we show that humans are horrible at being humans.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of humanity missing humanity. And even though it was a children's cartoon, it really made you think. It was really good at that.
The best kids cartoons
It
really do that.
really made you think. It was really good. It really made you think. And even though it was a children's cartoon, it really made you think. It was really good at that. Because I started questioning, why would we create artificial life forms for the sake of doing work that's too dangerous for us, and then not thanking them for it, not treating them as people, because they have hopes and dreams and ambitions as well. They have the full gambit of emotions that the Terrans had. So from there, I just kind of that the Terrans had. So from there, that just kind of affected me my entire life, whether or not I realized it at various points.
What you said just reminded me.
I'm going to do this last little cut. And then I think it has, in fact, already been an hour here with the live. I'm just saving this. Excuse me. So I guess as we're wrapping up here, I just want to say thank you for joining me this very early Saturday morning. Now, and as a friendly reminder, and I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen here. And I'm going to put on the chat, because just a few friendly reminders here. Of course, I do this every Saturday morning, so I'll see you again doing this next week. But in the meantime, I'd also would really just like super, super love to hear from you. And maybe what are some of the things that you're hoping to get from these videos? Like, I've been thinking about doing some shorter ones, just like little tutorials on right, like sound reduction, like I did the beginning of this morning, or right, like even some things like time management, right? Like one thing that I've talked about over the last few months is the fact that I am in fact a parent. So like, I'm curious, would you be interested in a little video about how somebody like me, right, who's like working full time and has family responsibilities, is kind of like working to build this on the side? That's something I'd love to hear from you from. So you can, I love Twitter. Like, yeah, it's just, it's super wonderful. You can also email me directly at rachelhansen10@gmail.com. And I'm just going to pop in all of these here in the chat so that you can see them. I am also on Facebook, and I'm maybe not super, super often, but if you send me a message there, I will get it. I'm just going to pop that in there. And you can also visit me online at my website. You know, it's a pretty cool place to be, I would say. Sorry, because what is it about Facebook, right? Like, you pop it up to get like a URL, and then it just like sucks you in. Now, one last thing that I wanted to mention. So I co-host a podcast called What the Finance, and I'm actually going to grab our website for the show as well. I'm just going to grab our link tree for you. Now, the reason that I'm bringing that up is because my co-host is going to be gone for a few weeks. And so I'm kind of just looking for like a guest co-host to join me. Right. And I do have like the big topic actually that I am looking for somebody to join me on is saving for retirement. So, right, like if you want to just like, and you don't have to be an expert in saving for retirement, but if you just want to like sit down and chat with me, I would love that, because just me like monologuing about saving for retirement doesn't actually sound like especially good content. And it would be really nice to get to know you. Right? Like those of you that watch these lives, or, watch them later on Twitch or on YouTube. So anyway, so there's all of that. Now I hope that you have, actually, since this isn't in the chat again, I just want to read, or, like here on the side of the video. If you want to put Heather's website that I mentioned at the beginning of the live, just here in the chat again, but it's spelled wrong. So there we go. Well, I just learned how to do something new. That's awesome. So yeah, anyway, like, kind of like all of these things. I'd love to hear from you, and I will see you next week.